Donne here, and today I am doing my August-September reading wrap-up. As always, it's a lot of thrillers, but there's a little bit of nonfiction in there too, so it's gonna be fun to talk about these books. But before I get started, I am partnering with Sourcebooks Fire to do a giveaway for this video. Sourcebooks has a ton of suspense and thriller books coming out over the next couple months or that have come out recently. Sourcebooks has so many thrillers that they've created like a little offshoot they're calling FIREReads Midnight. It's showcasing all of the thriller and suspense books that they have coming out in 2019 and 2020. They were kind enough to send me a box of books, and one lucky winner is going to win a box of these books themselves. These really range from kind of like low-level suspense, like contemporary suspense, all the way up to more high-octane thrillers. So there's really something for everyone, or for the one person who wins, there's gonna be something or more than one something that you're really going to enjoy reading. Don't worry, I'm gonna put the timestamp on the screen if you wanna skip this part and go right to the regular wrap-up. To win the giveaway, all you have to do is leave a comment down below. Let me know which of these thrillers from Sourcebooks Fire that I'm about to talk about sound the most interesting to you. This is a US only giveaway, and I will choose one winner and connect you with Sourcebooks, and they will send you this awesome box of books. You have until Monday, October 7th to comment and be entered to win. I will choose a winner on Tuesday, October 8th. I will respond to that winner in a comment, and you will have to then email me to confirm that you are the winner, and then Sourcebooks will send you the box. All right, there are a lot here, so I'm gonna go through them as quickly as I can. Starting with low-level suspense all the way up to those high-octane thrills. I love that FIREReads Midnight kind of classifies their books this way because it really helps a thriller reader like me figure out which one is the right choice for my next read. So starting with thrill level low, we have When the Light Went Out by Bridget Morrissey. I actually know Bridget. We're friends IRL here in LA, so I'm thrilled to have her book here. This one is about a group of friends who are uniting for the yearly memorial of their friend who died by accidental gunfire. One of the members of the friend group held and fired the gun that accidentally killed her. The incident has, of course, torn apart the friend group as well as their small town. And on this year of them reuniting, the main character, Olivia, finds a scavenger hunt that their dead friend Marley left before she died, and they decide to complete it, and it kind of unravels things. They decide to complete the scavenger hunt, which brings up all sorts of questions, including the big one: did Marley know that the gun was loaded? Next is The Similars by Rebecca Hanover. This one is a sci-fi thriller, so you know it's totally my jam. It's about this boarding school, and these kids show up, and they're not normal kids. They are DNA duplicates of current students, including the main character's best friend, Oliver, who died over the summer. Something creepy is going on, and Emmeline might be falling for the boy who is the DNA duplicate of her friend. Next is Scared Little Rabbits by A.V. Geiger. This is about a girl who goes to a prestigious summer tech camp, and a kid disappears, and all sights turn on her. People think that she is somehow involved, and she has to solve the mystery. So this has some kick-ass girls in STEM and a summer camp, elite summer program vibe. Now moving on to the medium thrills, and the first one is The Last Witness by Claire McFall. This has a lot of the things that I like. It's got an unreliable narrator where the previous summer she went on a trip with her friends, and one by one they all disappeared and something happened. It's a year later and people are asking for answers. Sounds really creepy and atmospheric. Next is The Last to Die by Kelly Garrett. This is a group of friends, they have a kind of high stakes game where they break into people's houses and they steal things, but only things that can be replaced, but then someone dies and the stakes get raised and the main character is worried that she is next. Then there's I Have No Secrets by Penny Jolson. The main character has cerebral palsy and someone confesses to her that he killed someone thinking she won't be able to tell anyone. But then she gets her hands on some new technology that enables her to communicate and comes into the sights of that killer because he now knows that she can tell his secret. It becomes a race against time to stop the killer and also avoid him before he gets her. And last but certainly not least for the medium thrillers, That Night by Sin Blog, which is comped to One of Us is Lying in the Darkest Corners. It's like, they know me. A year ago, the main character, Haley's boyfriend, allegedly killed himself, but she's convinced that he just wouldn't have done it, but she can't remember anything from the day he died. So it's a year later and she finds a message. She partners with her boyfriend's stepbrother to essentially uncover what really happened to her boyfriend, but she might unveil even deadlier secrets. So last but not least, the high-octane, high-level thrills, starting with The Lost by Natasha Preston. This one is for people who like escape rooms. Teenagers keep disappearing in Piper's hometown, and she and her best friend Hazel decide to investigate. They end up at this creepy-ass house that it turns out is basically like a deadly escape room, and then they have to go through a series of rooms in this creepy house and try to survive and get to the bottom of everything. And then the last two are also by someone that I know from my debut class, so it's kind of cool to do like a giveaway and I know some of the authors, and that's The Dark Beneath the Ice by Amalinda Berruba, and Here There Are Monsters by Amalinda Berruba. Or it might be Berube. It's one of those things where like you know someone but you haven't met them in person, so you're just not sure. The Dark Beneath the Ice is a queer horror novel that's described as Black Swan meets paranormal activity. Something is wrong with Marianne. Ever since she quit dance and her mother was checked into the hospital, she's losing time, objects break when she's near them, and the only person who believes her that something is going on is the daughter of a local psychic. Sounds really creepy. There's apparently exorcisms involved, so if you like horror, I would definitely check this out. Same thing with Here There Are Monsters. This one is comped as The Blair Witch Project meets Imaginary Girls. I love Imaginary Girls. In this one, a girl named Sky, who's had kind of like a codependent relationship with her younger sister, they move to a new town and she's like, I'm sick of this. You need to figure out your own thing. And so her sister starts like sneaking off into the woods and then she disappears. And a creepy thing comes scratching at Sky's window in the middle of the night and says she has to save her sister. Kind of gives me a Stranger Things vibe as well. So again, YA horror. There aren't a ton of YA horror books, so both of these seem like really good choices if that's your jam. So that's it. Again, comment down below, let me know which of these books or multiple of these books you are most excited to read, and I will select one US-based commenter, say in your comment, confirm that you're in the US, to win this box of books, plus, I almost forgot about this cool tote bag. It's really sturdy and it's also massive. So, oh, it's got a zipper. This would be a really good event tote bag, like you're going to like Y'all West or whatever, or BEA, and you gotta get a ton of books. So you'll also get the tote bag as well as the box of books. Man, I'm definitely going to read a few of these. If you couldn't tell, there were a few of them where like I saw the comps and the tropes and I was like, ooh, Sourcebooks is doing really interesting in the YA thriller space, as I'm sure you guys know if you are a fan of thrillers as well. I feel like there's not a ton of YA thrillers in that space. So Sourcebooks is a publisher who has clearly acquired and is publishing them at a pretty rapid clip. All of these have come out either very recently or will be coming out through 2020. I actually have a few YA thrillers into this wrap-up, which is really exciting because, again, there's not quite as many to choose from as how it always feels like, which is why I gravitate towards the adult ones so often. But let's jump in now to the wrap-up, starting with Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen McManus. So she had me at Small Town Secrets. This is one of my favorite thriller tropes, period, and it definitely kind of manifests differently depending on whether it's adult or YA. In adult, it's always like that woman who returns to her hometown reluctantly, like she didn't want to. Like All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda, I think that's what it was called, like had that kind of vibe, like she had to go back, take care of her dad, and it uncovered secrets. And I love that kind of like interrogating the past and the present kind of thing. So this one definitely has that vibe, but with a YA spin. So you have Ellery and her twin brother Ezra who have to move to this small town in Vermont to live with their grandmother because their mother has gone to rehab. It is homecoming time and they know that the town has had some tragedies recently. 20 years ago, their mother's twin sister died, and 5 years ago, a homecoming queen was found murdered behind, like, the creepy carnival thing in town. I mean, you invite a creepy carnival to town, you should really expect that a girl's gonna get murdered, right? So it has that kind of setting and vibe, because Ellery ends up getting a job at the creepy murder carnival, because choices. And that's the thing. Creepy messages start appearing all over town once Ellery arrives that it's going to happen again. Murderland. A homecoming queen is going to die, and then Ellery ends up on the court, of course. Like, it's very clear that someone put her on the court, and it's very creepy. It's wonderful and creepy. So the other main character, POV character, is Malcolm, and Malcolm's older brother was one of the prime suspects in the death of the other girl, but they could never prove anything. But now he's back in town and suspicions are mounting. Another girl goes missing and everyone's looking at Malcolm. And so Malcolm and Ellery, with a side of Ellery's twin brother Ezra and Malcolm's best friend Mia, come together to basically figure out what happened to this girl, Brooke. I gave To Keep a Secret 5 stars. Really solid, small town secrets book. I did ultimately find it kind of predictable. I guessed every single twist that happened in the book, but I'm also a seasoned reader of these kinds of tropes. I always have to kind of remind myself that when it comes to YA thrillers, that a lot of the readers who are coming to YA in general are often going to be new to a genre. So this is definitely a book I can find actual teen readers finding really engrossing. It'll probably be a gateway drug for more small town secrets books to come. Next, I read an adult thriller, The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This one is kind of what I'm starting to call for myself a British domestic suspense novel. I'm noticing a trend in a lot of the British ones that I'm picking up that they have a real almost like comforting suspense vibe. It's less kind of the high octane, unreliable narrator style that you get in a lot of the high concept US thrillers like Gone Girl or The Girl on the Train and obviously other ones. I find when I read the British ones, it's kind of like settling into a nice bath, and that's kind of how I felt about this one. It has some real gothic vibes. It's definitely about kind of family secrets, another trope that I really like. I mean, secrets in general in a thriller. In The Family Upstairs, when Libby turns 25 years old, she finds out, surprise, she's inherited a house on Cheyne Walk in Chelsea, London, one of the richest, fanciest neighborhoods and streets specifically. And Libby knew that she was adopted but didn't know the circumstances of her adoption, and it turns out she's basically an heiress. And there was a bit of scandal attached to her birth. She was found in this creepy house when she was about 10 months old. Her parents were found dead with an unidentified male. She seemed to be well cared for, but the teens who had been part of the family, essentially her siblings, totally missing. Libby searches the internet for more information on her origins, and she finds an article in The Guardian written by an investigative journalist, so she gets in touch with him and they check out the house. Meanwhile, we have 2 other POVs. Libby's is in third person and so is Lucy's POV. Lucy is a woman who's living in France with her 2 children. She's down on her luck, they sleep rough on the streets a lot, and she has a skeevy ex. And on the same day that Libby learns about her inheritance, Lucy gets a text notification that simply says, "The baby is 25. And then the third POV takes place in the past. It is Henry, the young boy who grew up in the house. You follow him from age 11 to about 16, and his passages are in first person. So you're working your way through the past, finding out what the heck happened in this book and to Libby's family, what led to Libby being abandoned. And you're putting together the pieces of who Henry is and who Lucy is and how everyone connects. This is where it gets really gothic because it's a creepy old house and these people, these hippies who move in and this family who basically becomes part of a cult, and the boy Henry growing up in it and all the weird stuff that happens in the house. I really enjoyed reading this book. I gave it 4 stars. I found myself coming back to it over and over again just because I wanted to be kind of caught up in that gothic atmosphere. It wasn't so much one that I was reading, like rapidly turning pages to figure out the twist. I was guessing some things and like having fun with that, but that definitely wasn't the point of the read. You know how some thrillers you pick up and you're reading to get ahead of the narrative and to figure out the big finish. This was definitely more kind of character, atmosphere, and kind of almost world-driven, because the whole rich family gets involved in a weird cult and shuts themselves up in their creepy mansion, was the most compelling and interesting part for me. At first I thought Libby kind of investigating her past would be the main thread, but I found myself most engrossed with Henry and Lucy's POVs. Lucy in particular, I really cared about her as a person, and kind of putting together the pieces of her life I found really satisfying. And then there's definitely a turn in the narrative where everyone collides, and that's when it got like very page-turny, and it has what I think is a pretty satisfying gothic ending, or gothic flavored ending. It's not a straight gothic, but I call it a domestic suspense thriller with gothic flair. Lisa Jewell is the best-selling author. I'd never picked up one of her books before, but I got approved for this one at NetGalley, and I'm really glad. You can always tell when you're in the hands of a master technician, an experienced and very good novelist, and I had a great time reading the book. I would definitely pick up another Lisa Jewell book, especially depending on the trope. This one satisfied a lot of tropes that I enjoy, creepy old houses and gothic stuff, so I'm definitely interested to read more of her stuff. Next, I read Reputation by Sara Shepard. This is, I believe, her second adult thriller type book. The last one I read of hers was The Elizas. I will link down below to the review of that one. That was a weird noir book that I ended up really liking, but I imagine some people hate. This one is a lot more straightforward. It's not as experimentally odd. Like that one had like a meta device where you were following the author and reading excerpts from her novel. This doesn't have that. This is pretty straightforward. You got 4 POVs, 4 women. They're all somehow connected to this almost Ivy League institution. It's a made-up elite college, and there's a hack at the beginning. All of these elite schools are hacked, and every single email is released onto a public server, and of course everyone's secrets are revealed, and lots of things start to unravel. And one of the main characters, after this happens, her husband is murdered, and everyone thinks she did it. And you're following these POVs and how they're all connected to the university and the hack, and to each other, and to the victim. And it's a pretty straightforward, like, Mean Girls Grown Up and the Secrets We Keep kind of book. Sara Shepard, of course, is the author of Pretty Little Liars, and I'd say if you like Pretty Little Liars, this feels like a grown-up Pretty Little Liars. These adult women would have definitely been a lot like those characters in high school. I flew through this one on a plane. It was an excellent plane read, engrossing. The 4 POVs were very distinct, and I was actively reading to find out all of their different kind of secrets and how they were related and how their individual stories would unfold. I definitely cared about a lot of the characters. And then it does have a lot of twists, because a lot of people are definitely keeping secrets, and it's about, you know, who done it, who murdered the woman's husband, but it's also about the why and like all of the different like motives people have and secrets. And I was definitely entertained by all of the twists and turns. But like my one thing about it, and I did give this a nice solid 4 stars. My one thing, which I'm not like mad at the book, but there was this one character. I'm gonna actually put a spoiler warning on the screen. I also go into spoilers in my Goodreads review, which is linked below under a spoiler tag, of course. And this is mostly just like that, you know, when you read a thriller and it reaches a conclusion, but you're pretty fairly convinced as a reader that it had a different ending originally, and that something changed because there are threads that are there and that you follow, and then something gets dropped and it's really confusing. So, spoilers. All right, we're in the spoiler section, so I can say, I've of course completely forgotten everyone's names, but you know the main character I'm talking about whose husband died. It turns out, you know, it was her daughter. It went for kind of the like, not quite sociopathic teen twist, but that twist where it's like, it was the child. And I liked the layers with the grandfather taking the fall. It was a nice little gut punch and it had a great happy ending. But the feeling I just couldn't get rid of, and I finished reading it and I just kind of scratched my head. What was the point of Paul in Willow's POV? I was convinced for a nice chunk of the book, I kind of saw the breadcrumbs being laid out that Paul did it. He definitely had a motive that is never explored. The whole thing with the ghostwriting and how like his ex-wife cleaned him out, it was all there. That like he confronted him wanting more credit, more money. The guy said no, so he killed him. It would explain why he was all over Willa and injecting himself into the investigation. And honestly, without him having been the killer, he has no point in the narrative. He disappears somewhere at the beginning of or in the middle of Act 3. And I personally think it's because the ending of the book was changed. I think it was edited to go with the daughter thing, because we have the midpoint twist of the daughter and the stepfather having an inappropriate relationship. And I think that it was Paul who was the killer with the daughter as a red herring. And I think at some point in the editing process, it was switched where the daughter wasn't a red herring. She actually did it. End spoilers. So that was just my pet theory there. And then I do want to give one significant trigger warning on this novel because I just think it's nice to warn readers just in case. This book does deal with sexual assault. It's got the hack and shades of Me Too and like people being outed for terrible things that they did. And there are 2 characters and scenes that I do think a reader, it's worth them knowing before they go in. There's one scene, I'll call it an almost sexual assault. I mean, it's a sexual assault, but it's one of those that has kind of a hazy area, but it's not explicit, but it's got just enough detail that it could definitely be triggering to someone who has been sexually assaulted. And then there's a second thing that is a flashback of an of a definite rape. And again, it's not explicit, it's not titillating, but it has just enough visceral, like emotional details that if you have had experiences with this and you find it triggering, you will probably have a problem with either the novel as a whole or just this section of the novel. And I would advise you to be careful. There's definitely a character in this book who her arc is dealing with trauma. So just putting that out there. But if you're looking for a current thriller novel that deals with the repercussions of Me Too and a trauma arc, it's worth a read. I ultimately really liked that character. She was my favorite character. I liked her purpose in the story and I liked her arc a lot. Also, I said 4 POVs and I think the book had 5. It's this amazing phenomenon where like, it's only been a few weeks since you've read a book and all of the names and details just fly right out of your head even though you enjoyed it. Next, I read All Our Twisted Secrets by Dana Urban. This is a YA thriller that is coming out next March, and it is a locked room mystery. It's about 6 teens who are invited to a scholarship dinner, and when they arrive, it turns out, no, it's not a scholarship dinner, it's a trap. There is a syringe of poison and a bomb with a ticking timer, and if they don't kill one of them in the next hour, they're all going to die. So the book goes back and forth between this hour in this room, this countdown, and these 6 teens basically starting to go a little crazy and debating, well, is this real? Should we kill someone? If we're gonna kill someone, who are we gonna vote to kill? It gets a little dark. And then it has flashbacks all told through the POV of the main character, Amber. Both sections are told through her POV. And you go back to a year earlier and you track through the last year of these 6 people, how they know each other, and stuff that went down, and you, as the reader, of course, are piecing together who might have done this and what's going on. This one had a very satisfying ending, in my opinion. I was guessing the whole time, of course, and I kind of was half right about half of the twist. So it was one of those where I was happy to be half correct, happy to be half incorrect because it was surprising, and then there was another twist, a really good kind of character-based twist that I totally didn't call and was genuinely surprised by. I'd say my favorite part of the book was the last third. It gets really high stakes and really exciting. And as much as I can say without spoilers is when you go into a book like this, there's always the worry that it's gonna cop out, basically, and this book doesn't cop out. That's the most I will say. The ending has some real stakes and I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 5 stars, so if like a YA locked room mystery sounds appealing to you, I definitely recommend it. And next, I took a nonfiction break. I watched the miniseries Unbelievable on Netflix. I loved it, and so I decided to read the book on which it was based. Really, it was based on a Pulitzer Prize-winning ProPublica article, but the same two journalists wrote a book, and the book formed the backbone basis of the movie, of the miniseries. To that end, if you do watch the Netflix miniseries, I'd say the book is 80% exactly what you got in the Netflix miniseries. It's very faithful. And 20% kind of new information and more in-depth information. Unbelievable is essentially the true story of a young woman in Washington named Marie. That's kind of her, not her code name. It's her middle name, but not her real name. She was 18 years old and living in transitional housing. She was a foster kid, and she is raped in her apartment in the early morning. And it's this unbelievable story of rape. And no one believed her. They thought she was lying, and they forced her to recant and admit that she was lying, and ultimately charged her with a crime of submitting a false police report, and she had to pay a fine to the city. She lost everything. It's pretty bleak. If you watch the miniseries, the first episode is honestly the hardest to watch. It's really hard to watch. I did go in prepared. I purposely read the ProPublica article first to decide whether or not I wanted to watch the miniseries because it was getting such positive buzz, and ultimately I did decide to watch it. But of course, the subject matter of the miniseries and this book just might not work for some people because it is about rape and rape culture and rape investigation. So the other half of the story is 3 years later in 2011, these two female detectives in Colorado linked a series of rapes that had all happened in different jurisdictions, and it's an investigation to find the person committing these horrible crimes and finding justice for the victims, and then it all links back to Marie. I really like nonfiction and I like true crime, so I really enjoyed reading the book. I got a taste for the writing style of the journalists by reading the ProPublica article, so I knew that it would be what I consider a good read. I mean, a tough but a good read. I liked learning more about the nuts and bolts of the investigation, as well as the background of the perpetrator. You get a lot more details about him and his life, and that's not stuff that you get in the original article or in the miniseries, because the miniseries made the very excellent choice, in my opinion, to focus on the survivors of these assaults and kind of the perspective of victims and the impacts and different reactions and healing process, I hesitate to say, and then of course the search for justice, whereas it didn't have a lot of kind of titillating focus on, ooh, the bad guy, but you get that backstory in the book. So I gave the book 5 stars. It is a slightly thin 300 pages. Again, you could definitely just watch the miniseries and get almost all of the same information, but I like reading books like this, so I'm glad I read it. And last but certainly not least, I read In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peterfreund, and yes, this is a Clue novel. There are now Clue tie-in novels. This is coming out on October 8th, so really, really soon. You can pick it up next week. And yeah, this one pleasantly surprised me. I mean, though, I already knew that I liked Diana Peterfreund. She wrote For Darkness Shows the Stars, which is a sci-fi persuasion retelling that I read years and years ago. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. And now she's doing these Clue tie-in novels, so I knew that I liked her, but I didn't know what to expect from essentially IP, intellectual property. Hasbro hired her to write this novelization, and I was pleasantly surprised by the fresh take. My favorite thing about the book was the essentially new world building and character work that was done. It takes place at the Blackbrook boarding school in Maine, and there's a horrible storm, and these characters get trapped who, yes, are named after Clue characters, and there's a house, and Mr. Body is murdered in the hall with the knife, and it's got a lot of fun little homages to the movie, but it really is kind of its own standalone thing. If you knew nothing about Clue, you could read it, and it's just a good boarding school murder book, basically. I would say it's best suited for, I hesitate to say younger readers, but meaning this isn't kind of dark upper YA that feels like crossover adult. This is an excellent read for a younger reader who loved the Westing game but wants to upgrade to YA suspense mysteries, of which there honestly aren't a ton. So I think this book is going to fill a very welcome space, and it is a series. I think it's going to be a trilogy, so the murder mystery of this book completely wraps up. It can stand alone, but it opens the door because each of the students have secrets, of course, for more books that will be set at this elite boarding school. So I'm totally here for it. I gave the book a healthy 4 stars. I did find some aspects of it, I hesitate to say predictable, but there was kind of like a soapy villain turn toward the end that I wasn't 100% sold on, but I still thoroughly enjoyed getting to know each of the characters. There is one trigger warning I do want to offer, a thing that I personally, I won't say was triggered by, but was uncomfortable with. There is a character, a POV character, Peacock. Her sections of the book aren't so much a POV as they are her journal entries. She is a competitive athlete, and her journal entries are food tracking and exercise tracking, and I personally don't like to read foods with calories and exercises. Anything that is really like obsessively getting into the nitty-gritty of eating and exercise, and there wasn't weight there, but I just personally don't like to read that. And so if you are an ED sufferer, survivor, or just have that trigger point, is I just skipped them. I basically forced my eyes to move over that part and read the actual journal part where the character wrote about her feelings about the murder mystery. But if for some readers it might be too much to read the book at all. The book also had a nice diverse cast. I was pleased to see that Scarlett is a South Asian character. There's also Mustard, who is described as a person of color, but it's not clear, like that's all that they say, so I don't know what their background is, but they are queer, they are gay. He didn't have a love interest, and I was a little bit sad about it, but I'm hoping in future books that Mustard gets to get a boyfriend. Then there is Orchid, who has a juicy secret. She's not who she says she is. I really enjoyed that. Finn, aka Plum, also has a juicy secret. I mean, they literally, I'd say they all had a juicy secret, except for probably Scarlett, which I hope is developed in future books, but all the other ones have pretty juicy secrets that not only impact this book, but specifically it looks like they're going to impact the series. Green isn't who he seems to be as well. Vaughn is his name. And we don't know why Mustard got kicked out of military school. So like there's all of those like, ooh, elements going on. Again, I recommend it if you like boarding school secrets books, but this one is kind of on like that sweet spot of what I would call lower YA, very accessible to younger tween and young teen readers. So that is it. That is my August and September reading wrap up. Don't forget to enter the Sourcebooks FIREReads Midnight giveaway if you are based in the US, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I will continue to do my reading wrap-ups. I'm starting to really diversify my reading, and on this one I tried to just do 6 books so that maybe this video would be shorter, but let's see if we can get it to like 40 minutes. But again, I guess my book fam does like a long wrap up. So if you made it to the end, thank you so much. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, guys, happy reading.